Best-selling graphic novelist Penelope Bagieu was born in Paris. At home, she's very well known for her work. In 2013, she was awarded the Chevalier d'Or, a distinction given to the masters of their craft in the field of art and literature in France. Many of her works has been published in other languages, and some have also been adapted for film. She currently works in Paris, where she regularly collaborates with Elle Magazine and Le Monde and other foreign publications. But The Exquisite Corpse is her first graphic novel published in the US, and it was published in France back in 2010. Can I just tell you, Parisians better watch out because we may not let you go back. Okay? This book is truly a page turner. It's smart, it's quirky, and it's funny. Here's a fun fact. During her downtime, she not only blogs but also is in a rock band and loves watching nature programs. Please welcome Penelope Bagieu, an interview with cartoonist and illustrator, a New York native, George O'Connor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here today talking with Penelope. When I first saw her work years ago in France, I was bowled over by like the way you draw, and I just couldn't quite read them yet. I'm not really conversant in French, so it was really exciting to see that you finally have some books being published here. So welcome.
Thank you.
And I think I wanted to start off just talking about the fact, like, okay, so it was mentioned in the intro that you have been awarded, you've essentially been knighted for your work in France. Pretty awesome. That's a level of honor that you don't see bestowed on cartoonists in this country. So now that you've just recently, and this is, maybe you guys know this, she's actually just relocated to Brooklyn. So we do have her now. But how do you find the difference between the way that the comic arts are treated in France as the way they are treated here in the United States?
Well, it's not a common thing either in France because contrary to what most American comic artists believe, we don't treat comic artists in France with a lot of more respect than here. I know people have this kind of image of like a comic mecca in France, but it really isn't. It really isn't. And the reaction of most people when I got knighted, which is a very big word for not much because, there's no such thing as a sword or anything. You just get a hug from the Minister of Culture and a very heavy pin, like a brooch.
How is that hug, though?
It's very formal. You receive a letter before that saying, this is how it'll go. You enter the room, there's a speech, then the hug. And you're like, okay, so everything is very formal. And you don't get to be called lady or anything special. Nobody cares. My mom was very proud, actually, but except that's pretty useless. But of course, I was very honored too. And the reaction of most people in France, and especially the media, was like, why knighting somebody who draws comics? That doesn't make sense. Because this is it's an award that was given to a lot of people, a lot of artists in France, but also abroad, because other people being knighted in France for that reason are people like Tim Burton or David Bowie or people like that. And in France, it's usually writers, and I mean writers of real books.
Oh,
and people like
but
that. But
comics are real books.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. And so we were 4 comic artists to be knighted at the same time, and people were like, "Wow, why?" So, well, it was a big step to us to be kind of recognized publicly, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Can you share with us the other artists who were knighted
Yeah,
at
sure.
the time?
There was Emmanuel Guibert.
Nice.
Which, if you don't know his work, it's amazing. It's a work on, war memoirs mostly. I don't know. I think they're all translated, his books.
His work's available here.
Yeah. Who else was there? There was the president of that year's Angoulême Festival edition. And also there was Manu Larsonnet, who wasn't here to get the hug. He just had the pin. He wasn't interested in the hug for some reason. And he also missed the official lunch. Yeah, I was sitting next to Uderzo, who did Asterix, so it was a pretty good lunch. So what was your question again?
I was just asking the comparison between like that, and you did kind of dispel saying, I know as an American cartoonist, we do look with great envy Like, I've gone to Angoulême, and it's like, the French know how to treat their cartoonists right. And it does seem as if they're venerated level that no one in the United States achieves. You're saying that's kind of maybe not the case, that I'm having a little bit of the grass is greener over
Yeah.
there sort of syndrome. But I was just wondering how you were enjoying and how you were experiencing so far the comics experience in the United States.
Oh, so far it's been great because all I've been doing is touring and signing books, so that's kind of the funny part. And doing nothing except, well, talking about my work, which is great. No, well, the good thing about comics in France is more the good thing about making books in France. That is, we have a very protective law for writers and books and people working in the publishing industry. It's very, very protective. For instance, we have a law that will ban, I don't know what you call it, when you can really cut down prices on something. What do you call it?
When a book is remaindered, for instance?
Like, no, even for shoes, for anything, when you can say 50% off. What's the word in English?
Sales?
Sales, okay. You can't do that with books in France. It's forbidden by the law.
Really?
No, you can't. Not more than 5% off. So you can never buy books for like $1. That's not happening, which means that all the people who get money from the book, all of them, bookstore, publisher, author, everybody, there's like a minimum income from their books. And this is a law that, for instance, Amazon is fighting really hard against in France. So because to them it's a mystery. But this is the only reason why we still have a lot of very little independent bookstores in France. That is all they can subside on. It's that law. So it's pretty much why it's a if it is a book mecca, maybe that's why. So yeah.
It seems like there's a very robust publishing world in France. For instance, magazines seem to still enjoy a lot of success there. And I kind of want to bring it, like you initially, your first forays into comics were the Josephine strip, right? Can you tell us a little bit about Josephine?
Yeah, it's a character that I created for Last Page comic strip in a magazine in Switzerland, actually. But we share the same market with Switzerland and Belgium because that's it pretty much the three countries that speak French. So we're very close together, obviously. And it was a commissioned work. And I'd never done comics before because I'd studied animation in art college. So my first reaction was, of course, well, that's very sweet, but I don't think I can do that. And they said, yeah, give it a try. And if it really sucks, we'll tell you, and it will be over. So I said, okay, I'll just give it a try. So I was learning as I was doing it, really. So it was a very good exercise. And after a year of publishing one weekly page all year, you do the math, that's pretty much 50 pages. So that's a book. So my publisher said, hey, we should make a book out of this. And then we did another the year after and another. So that were 3 books. And then I had enough of Josephine because that was all I was doing. And I started to have, well, maybe not the urge, but at least the idea of writing a complete story, which is what I did with Exquisite Corpse. And that was my first book.
So Exquisite Corpse, for those of you guys who don't know, Exquisite Corpse is the first graphic novel that you wrote, drew, everything together, one original graphic novel. It's a really tremendous story. I have crazy amount of like weird fanboy questions I want to ask her. So this might get into weird, rambly, geeky stuff, but hopefully I'll have the composure not to. This is also your first book to be translated into English, am I correct?
Yeah.
But it was done 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was huge in France. I'm wondering why do you think it took so long?
Well, I think there's a very heavy legal thing about translating books. And also what my editor, who's Mark Siegel from First Second, told me, because we met in Angoulême in that festival. We were having dinner at the same table because we have the same editor in France, who's Gallimard. And he said, I would love to acquire the rights of your book, but it's such a long road to have books acquired for the US when it comes from Europe, because there are so many differences in references and the market, even though it's a very bad word for talking about people who read, but still it is a market. It's very different. And in France, you don't have to be that specific about who the book is for. Usually anyone can read anything, even if it's very raw or Like you have no idea the books that I've been having in my hands when I was a kid in France. That would be totally challenged or forbidden here. But for some reason, we don't really care. So here, you know, the fact that is it adult? Is it for? Is it? Well, you have to be more specific about what the book's about, and also it doesn't have to be too French, because if it's filled with references to things, which makes sense, we have the same problem on the other way around. So he said, first I have to pick the book about among all your books that will suit the most the American audience. And so the good news is that it's my favorite of my books, because
really?
I do have a favorite of my own books, which sounds weird, but it's like, you know, it's like your kids. You always have one that you prefer, but you don't say it, and you can say it with books. So this one is my favorite, and so I was really happy. And he said, but you will have to be patient because it might take some time, and I don't mind because that still it's my favorite. So even if it took 10 years, I'd be happy, and hopefully it's going to be easier afterwards, because once you have your foot in the opening of the door and you kind of hear, so it's easier then. But it's funny because depending on countries, they don't acquire the same books among my books. Like in Japan, for instance, they don't want to have to do anything with that one. To them, it doesn't make any sense. They're not interested, and they really love Josephine because they think the colors are beautiful, which is a bit frustrating when you write stories, to tell you the truth, to know that that's the reason why they love your book. But at least I'm being translated in Japanese, and I had the chance to tour in Japan. That's crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of a dream. Yeah. So it
Well,
was.
I mean, with comics, one of the things, the visuals are going to really pack a punch like that. And I have this theory, it's like kind of when you pick up a comic, the artwork either absorbs you in or bounces you back immediately. It's the most instantaneous form of reading. Before you even begin reading, you can just look at a style. And I'm holding this cover up because I just wanted to say, like, this is such an inviting style. And I want to talk a little bit about this is a great book. I recommend everybody read it. And I have to be really careful about how I talk about it because there's a lot of cool twists and surprises. So I wanted to start talking about the main character, Zoe, who is the main character we see right here. And when I saw this cover, and when I had seen this in French and couldn't really read it, I kind of made some assumptions just based on my own preconceived notions of the sort of characters we see in a book like this. She looks very studious, right? I mean, I know it's hard to see. It's small. You guys are back there, but it's very clear, very...
So you do have to buy it.
Yeah, you'll have to buy it to get a really good look. But she seems like this very studious type, and I figured, oh, okay, it's one of those characters. She reads a lot. She finds herself. But Zoe's a character I don't think I've ever really seen in fiction before, where she's a complete non-book person. She's actually, when we meet her, she's actually working as, I believe the term used in the translation here is as a booth babe. She actually works at like a car show, just has to stand next to and deal with creeps all day and smile and act. So, and kind of like the whole main part of the story, the whole mystery is predicated on the fact that she has really never read a book. And it's like this like literary drama, literary mystery. And like there's this character so real, but we never seem to spotlight that type of character. I was just wondering where Zoe came from.
Well, she comes from my background, which I know a lot of people like that. This is where I come from. I come from a world where people don't read that much, and famous people are the people who are on TV, and that's it. And she's never stepped foot in a bookstore before, and she's like many of these people who are like, I don't think books are for me, which is a very sad thing to think, but she's lucky at some point, and that's exactly what happened to me, is that she ends up meeting the right person working in a bookstore, saying, no, I won't take this for an answer. You can't say you don't like books. It's going to take me all the time and energy in the world, but I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to find a book that you like and that you love, and then another and another, and I'm going to make you enter that world, because it isn't true. No one doesn't like books. It's just that you haven't found the right one. And that's something that somebody did for me with comics, because I didn't read comics at all, because I had all this image of, it's only superheroes and
Wait,
elves.
really? In France, it still
Yeah.
is that stereotype.
Oh, yeah, it's a very boyish thing.
Huh.
And I thought, I prefer real books. And so, but when I started doing comics, I was invited to bookstores all the time, and the people who worked there wanted to give me at the end of the signing as a gift a comic book, and they said, "Which one can I get for you?" And I said, "I don't read comics, thank you." And so they said, "No, you can't say that. No, you can't." And so one of them, after his store was closed, he spent like 2 hours with me, and he said, "Okay, what kind of movies do you like? What kind of books do you like?" And then he started really. You could tell that it was his mission. And then he found one. He said, "Read this one. Tell me if you liked it. If you didn't, then maybe I have another try for you." And he made me like comics.
What
And
was that first comic?
it was a book. I don't know if it's been translated in here. It's called "Ma maman est en Amérique, elle a rencontré Buffalo Bill," which means my mom is in America and she met Buffalo Bill. And it's a very, very sad story about a little boy whose mom has left his dad, but his dad keeps making him believe that his mom left for America, and so he writes fake postcards that she sends to him every week. And he grows up thinking that his mom is in America, and what his mom tells him is more and more extravagant. She meets Buffalo Bill, she's living with Native Americans, and he really believes in that until the day where he has a very mean neighbor, a little girl who breaks the truth to him. And of course I was crying like a fountain the whole time I was reading it, and I missed my subway stop, and I was like, oh my God. So you actually can feel that with a comic book, you know? It's not just adventure packed and big swords and elves with big boobs, you know? It's not there's so much more to it than just that. So I emailed the guy from the bookstore and I said, "But that was so amazing." He said, "Yes." And so I said, "Okay, what else?" And then he sent me lists for a while, and then I was in. So I didn't need him anymore, but I still listen very carefully to his recommendations, because he's the kind of guy who really knows his job. He's not just selling books. He really tries to find something that you like, which is something I really like to do now. I really enjoy for my friends' birthdays, for instance, or for Christmas, to have people to get comic books when they think they don't like comic books, because when they open the wrapping, they're like, "Ah." And I said, no, really, promise me you'll read it, because I know I chose it really for you, and I know you're going to like this. And when they do read it, I'm never wrong. They love it. So you just have to make that move, I guess.
That's really cool. Does he ever get a dedication in one of
Oh,
your books?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. He has the same face as the one in my book. So it's kind of a tribute. Yeah, he knows
Okay.
it.
I'm gonna. This is the first of the many threatened little geeky questions I had. So take a look at the back cover here. I don't know if you can see it very clearly. We're basically looking at an apartment building, and there is a figure who's staring out the window. The inciting incident of Exquisite Corpse, basically the main character Zoe, she has a life she's not happy with. She has this terrible boyfriend. She has this terrible job. She's just really fed up. And she goes in a park to eat her lunch. And she notices this man watching her from a window. And just as a little moment, she waves. It's an adorable drawing, too. Zoe is the most adorable character ever. And, he has this great reaction where I love this drawing. He's just like, "Oh," and disappears. And then we have a sequence of panels where we're looking at this basic view, and from window to window on that floor, he keeps looking out and peeking at her. And she notices this, and you could see from the face of Zoe, she's like, "What's going on here?" But this is the part. Zoe decides to walk up and buzz his ringer and ask to use the bathroom. And this is the moment that sets this whole book into, movement. She basically goes into the stranger's place and uses his bathroom and strikes up a conversation. And that was, the bit for me reading this book that blew my mind. What was Zoe's reasoning behind that? Was this her attempt to break out of her doldrums? Was this...
I think she just wanted to pee.
It really is just
Yeah.
wanted to pee. Okay.
Yeah, because once she's inside his flat, she says, because he's starting to ask a lot of questions to her.
He's a
And
mysterious, reclusive author. We
Yeah.
can't say much more, but...
and she's like, "Okay, can I use the bathroom now? Because, I'm not interested in your questions." And he's like, "So that's what you're really here for?" And she said, "Yeah, that's why I asked."
Oh, the train,
Wow,
yeah.
that's an amazing train you have here.
We need to lay somebody on the tracks.
People, huh? Yeah. And when she's on the toilets, and she leaves the door open so that they can talk. And he's like, and he's so shocked, and he's like, you can speak to me if you want. And she keeps speaking to him, and when she's done, she's like, okay, thank you, and she leaves. So yeah, she just really wanted to pee, which is something I might
That's
do.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, the character of Tomas, his mind is fairly blown by this thing, and the way the story moves in this. I just love the way you move the story forward. There's so much. It's such an effortless story that unfolds in so many unusual ways, but it never feels forced. And I just love that, like, that she just goes up there. The whole thing starts because she has to pee, and that's my geeky question. I'm like, did she really have to pee, or was there a weird ulterior motive? So, a couple other things I want to talk about. Just as a fellow cartoonist and somebody who really admires your craft, how do you create your visuals? What is your mediums that you use?
Yeah, for this one, it's all Photoshop.
It is.
Yeah.
So did you draw this with like a Cintiq?
Yeah,
Or is this
exactly. Which is a big screen you draw directly on, which is so convenient, but very heavy, and you cannot bring it with you. So that's you're kind of stuck to your office after
Yeah,
that.
that one definitely gets you chained inside.
Yeah.
Do you have the big ergonomic arm too, so you don't you can move it about and not hurt yourself?
No.
Oh, mine does.
Sounds great.
That sounds like it was a brag, but it's not a brag at all. And what is your general process for when you create something like this?
I do write a lot before daring to draw first line, because I think I kept all my fears from school, where before writing an essay you have to make the the perfect plan before starting to write, and I kind of kept that in mind, because the this book is part of a collection in France that is run by a man named Johan Svar, who does comics too, who's very, very famous. And so he kind of made me do this book. And I
Wait,
said,
really?
yeah, he did. We met in a train coming back from Angoulême, and he said, I know you should write a book in my collection. And I said, no, I know, because I can't. And he said, yes, you can. And he said, if you were able to write good essays in high school, then you can write a book. And I said, no, that's not true. It's a job. You don't just need to be good at school. And he said, yeah, come on, give it a try. And so I wrote everything like a million times. And the more you write, the moment that you'll have to jump in the water and start drawing is more and more scary.
Yeah,
And
that's interesting to me. You wrote full script
Yeah.
because so much of the story is told in wordless pictures. What would that look like in your script?
It's not a script. That's why it's just no one can read it but me. It's like half spoken, half little drawings, and in my head it's very clear the way that things will happen. But it's not like it's a material somebody could make a book out of. No one can work on that. And every time I've been trying to read a proper script, for instance, this one is being adapted in a movie, and they sent me the script. And after 2 pages, like, I can't read a script. It's too boring. It's descriptions of everything, and like the lighting is described, and that bores me a lot. So it's not a proper script. It's just I write. Well, I'm very careful to the dialogues. That's the only thing I write a lot, to make sure it does sound like people talking for real. Because and that's one thing that was really taken care of in the translation. So that's really. It like the tone of Zoe, for instance. I wanted her to have a very different language as Thomas. She speaks like I speak, and he speaks like I would love to be able to speak. And so and it was very important, because it's a very I like the words. Sorry.
You mentioned actually that they're working on a film of this, and there has been at least one movie of Josephine, and there's a second on the way,
It's
right?
being shot right now as we speak.
How has that experience been, having your work adapted into film? Are you interested in being part of that process, or
No.
you just it's kind of like go do your thing?
Exactly. Yeah. There are 2 schools on this. Either you really involve yourself in it and you piss everyone on the set because you say, no, that's not the way I saw her shoes. I know this is so not her, and everybody's mad at you, but at least it's your film, and if it's bad, it's your fault, and you can take the blame. And I think this is what I thought I wanted to do at first, because I thought nobody's gonna touch my baby. I'm gonna do everything. Or the other school is just take the money and go away. I thought, of course, I would never do such a thing. But then I talked with the producers of the film, and they said that that's very nice. We're very happy that you get involved in the film. Of course, to us, it's a great luck because we will have your vision, so that's great. But he said, you have to know something. If you think that making a book is a big work, you have no idea what it's like to make a movie. Because not only does it take 2 to 3 years of your life, if everything goes well, but there's so much money involved, so much more than for books, that people will be crazy. And if something goes wrong, or there's a day where you're like, I don't feel like working today, people will kill you. So, and every day you have to give 40 to 100 people the energy to work because they're working for you. The staff is not here for the movie, they're here for the director. So if there are days when you're kind of, nah, you have to have the energy for everybody for years. Are you willing to do this? And I thought, no, of course not. No. You mean like no holidays? Like I said, no. It will be your life for 2 years. You will sleep your movie and eat your movie, and that's all you'll do. And I said, okay, so no, I'd rather go for the take the money thing. Yeah, sounds more like me. And but then I went to have a look on the set a lot of times, and it was really magical, of course, to see. Like for Josephine is a character. She's a woman with very big bottom, and the actress had a prosthetic bottom that was put on every day, so I was able to touch it, which is a dream for a cartoonist. Like, oh, it's a real one. That's great. And
every cartoonist dreams of touching the butt of their characters. That's like a little known fact.
Well, I did. And but then I thought, the moment that maybe one day there will be a story that I will have the guts to work on for years like this, then I'm sure I want to make a movie then, but not to adapt myself, which is kind of boring. And I was like, okay, so now I know what it's like, and I'm sure someday I will make a movie, but I want to write a story especially for that, so I have the energy to do it and to not let people down. And when the movie came out, there was a lot of publicity in France. There was these posters everywhere on buses and everywhere. So that was weird. It was weird, especially since they put my name in huge on it.
Nice.
So yeah, so that was pretty weird. But I thought, I'm so happy I'm not the director, because when you read film critics and film reviews, it's a lot bigger than book reviews. You have it everywhere. You have it on TV. And you're like, I'd hate to be that person and be like, oh, is it good? Oh, I don't want to know. So that's too much for me, I think.
That's really cool. So you mentioned you want to make a film one day. You've already made some animations, and that's actually what you
Poorly. Yeah. Yeah.
So but that was what you initially started out as, right?
Yeah.
As doing animation. But you're not a fan of the work you've done, or?
Oh, it was my graduation film at the end of college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's all I
Okay.
did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's I have a lot of tenderness for it, but it's not like it's a real film, It's a short film about not being able to write a story. Where did she get that idea? And to kind of blur the lines, I made the main character a guy, so no one can recognize me. But yeah, I think everybody does. So yeah.
It's online if anybody wants to find it. I think it looks.
Is it?
Yeah.
I made sure it wasn't.
Unless maybe it's only part of it, but it's about maybe 7-8 minutes long.
Yeah, sounds like
it's
my
online.
film. Oh, I had people killed so that no one can see it.
Well, you may never see me after this because I've just revealed this.
I don't think you can see it online, really.
Yeah, no. He's got like stubble, curly black hair.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a lot of stop motion stuff.
Where
and
did you
cut
see
paste.
that?
Oh man, I'll send you the
That's
link
like
later.
my darkest secret.
So
That's
I won't,
why.
I'm not going to reveal the title then because. All right, let's move on. Influences. Who are
Yeah.
some of the people? Okay, you mentioned actually. You were discovered, not discovered, you were inspired to do this book by Juan Safar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know Juan Safar. He's like the god of French comics. He's amazing.
Oh,
You
I'll
guys-
tell him that. He'll be over the moon.
Oh, please do. And you've actually collaborated on a book together, too.
Yeah.
And what was that book called?
Stars of the Stars.
And that, unfortunately, not yet available in English, right?
Yeah, and it happens in New York
Yeah.
and in space, half.
as most stories do.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to assume Schwan is an influence. Who are some of the influences? Who are some of the people who you've looked to as being?
Well, since I started reading comics very late, not many comic artists, but I have a mom who was a very big fan of picture books and children's book when I was little. So she had nowhere else to store them except my room. So I had, well, in my kids' eyes, a million books, but maybe not a million. But from the floor to the ceiling, picture books from everywhere in the world. On the top shelf were the pop-ups that was not allowed to touch. It was like the holy grail of my mom. She said, no, these are children's books for grown-ups. You're not allowed to touch these. Maybe one day when you grow up, but no. Maybe when you're 18. And so it was like, and I was a very lonely child because my sister is 6 years older than I am, and she didn't want to have anything to do with me. So I only had books. And so to me, it was like people. And she was a big fan of 50s and 60s illustrators from, of course, England and America. So I kind of grew up with this mostly, and press drawing and press cartoonists, and above all cartoons. When I was a little kid, when I was asked what I wanted to do when I grew up, I said I want to be Tex Avery. That's what I wanted to do as a job. So I said, okay, I'll do that. I'll do like that guy. And I have I have videotapes of him that broke because I watched them 10 times a day, and yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Tex Avery makes a lot of sense. Your characters have this wonderful elasticity to their facial features. It's like their reactions are they're very large, and at first glance it's like, whoa, that's a very big reaction. But you see that the characters' faces are just so pliable, and there's a real humor just in the way that they react to things.
Well, thank you. But you know, when you work in animation, you have to exaggerate things a lot. So at least you can get the essence of an emotion in one image. You know how to make it very recognizable. So once you go for a book, it's so much easier because you don't have to try for years to draw like surprise or anything. You exactly know what the shoulders are like when you're surprised, what the eyebrows are like when you're intrigued. It's a very immediate thing because it takes so much more time to do it in motion than when you have to have it just in one image. It's very easy.
You've distilled it down to like, it's really nice. There'll be like just the whole body of the one figure will reveal so much about the way that, particularly I find the character of Tomas, who is the author guy that's on there. Like there's some hilarious bits of acting that he does, just like the way he'll like slouch, and he's a very mercurial character. He can go from being very on top of the world, like real egotist, to like just being like destroyed very quickly. He's a fascinating
he's an artist.
That's true.
Yeah.
And there's a thing, this is my second of my super geeky questions. This is something I really enjoyed reading this. There's kind of this motif in this book about like terrible men going pantsless but wearing socks. It becomes like a visual shorthand. Like there's a scene where like one of the characters, there's a scene where like Zoe seems to notice like, oh, he's just wearing socks, and he's just, and it's hilarious. It's like this great shorthand for like, this guy just sucks. Like, who is the basis for that?
One of my ex-boyfriends, unfortunately.
Oh,
of
no.
course, yeah. Yeah, most of the people in this book are real people that I know. So I kind of made a mix of all of my worst ex-boyfriends to do hers. So yeah.
She
But
truly has the worst
the
boyfriend.
sock thing is a pretty common thing, right?
Well, you know, you've just moved to Brooklyn. Have you noticed that that's becoming a real trend? Brooklyn has just made this thing where people are doing the sock garters again. All these like young 20-year-old dudes wearing like leather sock garters and big black socks pulled up to the shorts. It's going to be a bad summer.
And and as usual, 2 years from now, we'll get that in France.
So
For
something
some
to look
reason.
forward to.
Yeah.
I was wondering, and I know this is the sort of question that really puts people on the spot, but what are some of the projects you're working on now? Is there anything you could share with us?
Yeah, sure. I just finished, a few days ago, a book that will come out in France in September called California Dreamin'. And it's a 300-page that I drew in black pencil with no color. Took me forever,
Wow.
approximately. And I'm really glad it's over, but also a bit sad because I've been living with this book for so long. So now I'm kind of empty-handed. But I really do hope it will be translated too. It's kind of in the process, but it might take some time. And there's an exhibition going along with it because for once there are originals because it's all hand drawn with a pencil, and I have 300 of these pages, so I really need to sell these now, or else I don't know what I'll do with them. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and I can't wait. It's really good. And here, well, unpacking mostly and finding a couch. That's what I do of my days in Brooklyn.
Whatever you do, don't pick up a couch from the sidewalk because you'll get bed bugs. That's
Still, I thought it was over.
no, gosh, no.
No? Oh,
It's
okay.
just starting up again. It's warm again, so it'll happen again.
Okay, okay.
Is there anything else that is in the pipeline to be translated here? Anything else we can expect to see of your work?
Well, if something was translated, that'll be that next California Dreaming book
Okay.
because that's the one that First Second is interested in. And I've been looking through it in my head, and I don't think there's any nudity this time. So because that's something I found out when I arrived here, that nudity thing that seems to be a problem.
People get there, and trigger warning, I guess. There is like a slight bit of nudity
there's
in
a
this.
panel where you see nipples.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was, so I just found out. And so yeah, but that's it pretty much. And keep on showing this one to people here, and I hope they like it because, as I may have mentioned before, I really love this book. So
Well, you've been doing a bit of touring for it. What have people mostly responded to, like that they've talked to you about this?
well, people kind of like it, I guess. But it's not for me to say that because I'm just amazed by the fact it's translated. So every time I have people talking another language talking to me about my book, like you are right now, it's like, can't believe this. This is crazy. You mean when you write stories, you write for yourself, and the people who live with you because you force them to read your books, and some friends who have time to do it. You never think there are people that I will never meet that will read things that are so personal, but and then people from other countries. That's science fiction. So I'm pretty much amazed anyway. Even if people tell me it's crap, I'll be like, yeah, but you say it in English. That's wow, that's crazy. So yeah.
California Dreaming. I want to that's really sounds very interesting to me. Is it like set in California?
No, it happens in New York,
Okay,
of course.
makes sense with the title.
Yeah, in the village in the 60s. It's about the folk scene, and it's kind of a fantasized vision of a tiny part of Mama Cass's life from the Mamas and the Papas.
Oh,
Yeah, because I really love her. So
that's fascinating.
yeah, and she's had an amazing life, short life, but amazing. And she's a character that really moves me a lot, and that I feel a lot of empathy for. And I really wanted to talk about her and that scene that surrounded her, because that was this moment when every time you see a documentary about anyone in the music industry in these days, they were all hanging out together all the time. You always see the same people. It's like they were a bunch of 10 friends, and you just feel like we really missed something. It did sound cool. So I did a lot of research in New York for the drawings and everything. In that neighborhood that didn't change that much, except now you have APC stores instead of record stores, but the architecture is the same. So it was a fun book to do because I had to go to New York to do it. So that was the good part. So I decided to stay there.
That's the reason for for moving over here?
It was more, no, it was just, I thought, hey, I have a book coming out there. Let's go live there.
Cool.
Yeah.
You have your blog, which I'm not going to attempt to butcher the French translation, but it's quite the...
It's Ma vie est tout à fait fascinante, which
Which
means my life is quite fascinating.
And it seems to be like an enormous thing. People it's got an incredible readership. There's even been a collection made of some of the cartoons from it, right?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that as an outlet for you?
This is something I started to do when I was working in advertising. because the first job I did, job as in something that pays after school, was I was an illustrator for advertising in magazines, and that kind of drove me crazy because you just finished art college where you had all the time in the world to practice collage and crayons and things like that, and all of a sudden you're drawing mummies on a soup can, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is it, and it's over. You're never asked to have any idea or being creative or do anything you actually enjoy. So even though it pays, and everybody's like, wow, you make a living out of your passion, that's great, but it's not the same as your passion, honestly. So you really need to have some sort of private space where you do something else, or else you really go crazy or totally alcoholic, which is what happens with most of people working in advertising, and I think that's why. And so I had this blog where every day I said that I would draw something that takes me only 5 minutes, and that is not a real story, that is no big thing, that is just something that is like a non-event between my nothing from my private life, nothing from my professional life, just everything in between, which is only what is not really interesting. The lights have gone out in my toilets, and I've been peeing in the dark for 3 months, and that's it. So this really isn't interesting. But it was like practicing your keys when you play an instrument. You know, you have to do something else every day, just not to lose it. And so I thought I'd do that every day. And the good thing about having a blog is that you have the feeling you do this just for yourself, and without knowing it, people begin to read it, but you never see them. It's the contrary of being on a stage. It's like singing in your bathroom in front of your window and being like a rock star, giving everything. But what you don't know is that there are people watching from behind that mirror, but you don't see them. So it's not intimidating, and you don't have to reread your things before posting and be like, is it okay? Is it? You don't care. You just do your thing, and but there were people reading it, and more, and so yeah, it was really fun. The problem was that then I met people who thought they knew me because they knew so much and so little tiny details of my life that they thought, hey, so how's your cat doing? Wow. Or how's your flu? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, mention that flu. That's right. So it's kind of weird.
Is this something you're trying to move away from now?
No, it's just that now I found out that the main problem is time and nothing but time, and that even these 5 minutes a day added to the 5 minutes to do something else and something else made me take one extra year to make a book. And so now I have the discipline to say no 5 minute things anymore, because I have to finish this book, and so I don't have time to do many. I'm not that multitasking anymore.
Well, I'm glad you said time, and you also mentioned instruments, because this is one of the things, obviously we've been talking, there's a lot of accomplishments here in like a surprisingly short amount of time, and additionally, at least up until recently, you played in a band.
Yeah, very well. Very
I can
well.
tell from that expression.
No, I don't. But it's cool when you make.
You were a drummer, correct?
Yeah, I'm a very good drummer. When you make a living out of art, and so art becomes so important, and it has to be good, and you have to make it bankable. It's so important to have another aspect of your artistic life that you're allowed to suck at, and being very bad, and nobody cares because you're just here for fun. You know, when I draw, it's serious. When I play drums, and I really do suck, believe me, it's okay because I just do it for fun, which is what some people do with drawing. Like I know I don't draw well, but I enjoy doing it, and leave me alone. And you know, people are like, so are you gonna make a tour with your band? Are you improving? Like, no, let us suck, please. That's very important to me. So, and we really do. Well, especially me. But
So are you still doing that now that you're in New York?
no,
Oh. So you need to find something else to suck at.
yeah, or another band to suck with.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm very sad. That's one of the things I'll miss the most, I think, from Paris. It's my rock band.
It's funny. There's a handful of cartoonists I know who do both the, like you're saying, like being a cartoonist is kind of an all-encompassing thing. You have to work at it a lot. And I didn't realize that you were striving for like the suctitude with your band. But I've met a few cartoonists who are able to balance the different things and like kind of do both music and I'm just always like in awe of that.
Yeah, Charlie Allard, he's a very good drummer.
Yeah.
He say he sucks at it, but I've heard what he does, and he's really good. The guy is just good at everything. That's I don't know how he does that.
And you've done a few sketchbooks kind of like your travels.
Oh yeah.
There's a New York, there's a London. Anything else that you'll be doing along those lines?
It's not a sketchbook. It's a city guide with addresses that I recommend and I draw about. And I would love to do many more. I've been trying to made some sort of lobbying to have sending me to Tokyo, but they were talking of Barcelona more, which is very good. But when you're French, it's not that exotic because it's like 1 hour flight from Paris and it's full of French. So you're
It's like, oh, okay,
yeah, but it's a great city. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's very that's the kind of incredible things that happen to you when you draw. One day somebody said, "Would you be willing to be paid to go on a trip and just try a million restaurants and bars and tell us the ones you prefer?"
That's insane. That's
So you're like, let me give it a think.
yeah.
Yeah.
How many seconds did you think were like, yes, I'll do it. Yes, please.
Yeah, I've learned in time not to say yes too quick. To look serious. Like, yeah, well, maybe you should call my agent first, which is one of my favorite sentences.
Okay, and we've been talking a lot about stuff you've just recently completed, things you've done in the past. Is there any sort of dream project, like however ridiculous, however untenable, that you would just love to do? What's the thing that if you were given carte blanche to do whatever you wanted?
I think there's an option on my brain that forbids it to have that kind of thing. I don't know if other people are like that, but even when I say, "Come on, nobody's listening. There's just you in your head. What is it? The big thing you dream about?" And no, I can't. So I can't even. That's so sad. I can't even picture something like that because I'm like, no. I have a modest brain. Even my imagination is poor and modest. I'm like, no, that's good. I'm glad like that. But the other day at Toronto at TCAF, we were having this panel with, it was about editorial illustration. And for some reason, I was there. And there was one Canadian, one American, and one French. It sounds like the beginning of a joke, but it was...
They walk into a bar.
Yeah. and the person who's...
The moderator?
The moderator asked us, to you, in each of your country, what is the biggest thing that can happen to an editorial illustrator? And we discovered that no matter what your country was, it was the front page of the New Yorker. To everyone in the world, it's like, this is the big thing. But on the other hand, I never imagined that it might happen one day. It's just that I know this is the big thing, but it is even to French people.
Interesting.
It's run by a French woman, so...
Yeah, Francois.
Yeah.
So that's it. So this is going to be my way of talking about, like, how do you choose what your next project will be? If you don't have these grand dreams, like, how did, like, California Dreaming present itself to you?
Well, the thing about comics is that it takes so long to make it, then that the process is kind of reversed. You have a million ideas, and you know that, this is the one I'm gonna go for 10 years from now when I'm done with the 3 that I have to finish before. So you have more a problem of time to do all the things you want to do than finding an idea of what you want to do. I'm sure it's the same for you. You're more like, okay, let me just finish that one, and I'll see you in 2 years, and then I can do something else. So, but it's a good filter to know if your idea is worth something. If you still want to do it after 5 years of waiting, that means it is the good idea. So I have like notes of things that hopefully I can start. Well, not after this one because I signed for another like 3 years ago and I have to do it. But then after that, so I hope I can live 100 years because there are so many stories I want to tell. So.
Excellent. Well, I've just gotten the notice that this is we're wrapping up here. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. This was like a real honor for me. It was really
thank
exciting.
you.
Like I said, I'm a huge fan, and I'm really looking forward to. I'm gonna ask Mark to get me a copy of California Dreaming because I'm sure
It's in French for the moment.
Yeah, I'll pretend I could read it. But thank you all so much for coming
Thank
here.
you. Thank you very much.